Topic of tonight, and this is the lessons. Were you dozing there, Dennis? No. Okay, the lessons that we can learn from the Westgate attack a year on, and there have been numerous other attacks over the 1 year, and we can say there's enough that we can take from. So Dennis Nthumbi, he is a security analyst. He'll be joining us with his expertise in that field. He has come back home. Dennis Okari, he had abandoned us. He is actually at BBC right now. He's a journalist with the BBC, and he covered the attack at Westgate while at NTV, and he did a very intriguing investigative piece. He'll tell us a bit more about that. Harun Mwangi from the Media Council, the chairman, he will tell us a bit more about the report that was released 4 months after the Westgate attack on the misgivings of how we carried it forward. And we have veteran journalist John Gashie. He's been here for 15 years as the foreign affairs editor and journalist. Of course, he comes with a wealth of experience from that field. And so, just to set the stage on it, it has been a week of commemorating the more than 67 people who were killed in the Westgate Mall attack a year ago across the board. There has been patriotic coverage of what exactly the people who've survived the attack are doing right now to move on with life. First of all, just to start with that, because there was a criticism that we focused too much on the mellow side of things. I don't know if you followed the coverage over the weekend as we were commemorating this. I'd start with you, Dennis. What do you make of this now since you're in the international field?
Well, there's a general feeling of, you know, not asking the hard questions when that time was needed. And, you know, a year later, coming back to ask the same questions when people have moved on and they've said, whatever happened, happened. Some who forgive the gunmen, others have moved on with their lives. It's coming a bit late, but having said that, it's also difficult to get these questions answered because personally I've been involved in trying to get these answers, and it's very tough getting them from government officials, for example. Right. So I tend to agree with that statement on one hand, but on the other hand, it's also very difficult.
I don't know, did you follow our coverage, extensive coverage, wall to wall, about the survivors and the heroes? Nothing wrong about this.
I think if you ask for me, I saw it as an over-coverage.
A what?
Over-coverage.
Over-coverage.
Yes.
Overkill.
Overkill. Overkill. And you know, one of the things that you have to strike a balance with, and you have to understand, is that terrorism itself is not concerned about the victims. They have no interest about those victims. They don't know them personally. It's basically a crime against society. And the larger field that the larger field that the terrorist is interested in is what it is that they call the Ummah. It's a public. So by giving them that avenue to agonize that father, the Ummah father, then it's basically helping the terrorist organization achieve its objectives a year later. And one of the things that you have to see, the terrorist is interested in an ideological warfare. Right. It's how much fear they can pump into that Ummah. They want to keep, you know, having the media repeat and repeat and repeat those gory images. Okay. Do we really need that? Perhaps not. You understand? And Kenya has become a very paranoid nation out of that. I mean, there was a small incident at Galleria today, and you know, everybody just went into pandemonium. A small tire burst on the road, everybody is going to hide.
Yes.
So the question is, do we need that? No. Does a terrorist need that? They're absolutely getting free publicity out of that. So we need to strike a balance between what it is that, how further we, you know, we publicize that, and yeah.
Harun Mwangi, you were watching basically how we covered it, especially when it just happened a year ago. What were the first recollections that you have of that moment?
First, no one was sure about what was happening. I was in the office myself, and radio stations kept on announcing that there was theft, there was a break-in in the mall, and until 3 hours down the line, that's when the information was, you know, streamed in that it was terrorist attack. Right. So nobody was sure in the first instance, but after that again there was confusion in terms of what is happening, in terms of information flow from the government, from the newsroom. There was no certainty. So there was a lot of discordant. There was a lot of misinformation that was happening.
And before I give you a chance to give us the first few impressions you had when this happened, I'm not too sure how many here have watched the Terror on the Mall. This was a HBO documentary that was directed by Dan Reed. At least I believe two of you have. And well, Dan Reed joins us this evening. He's joining us from London. Thank you very much for your time, Dan Reed. And earlier we were talking, and I told you how many Kenyans have watched, and you said those are pirated versions. But anyway, we watched your production, and we'd want to engage you on. Basically, I'm told we have lost him. Sorry about that. I can see him here, but we can't patch him up on the screen. Sorry about that, Reed. Just hold on a second. Mr. John Gashie, this happens, and where were you? And what were the first impressions? September last year.
Yes, I was heading to the city center, and I was at Adams Arcade, and I got a call from my daughter, and she said, "Daddy, have you heard what's happening at Westgate?" Because she works very close nearby. And I said, "I haven't heard." And she told me, "There is a robbery going on, and there are gunshots going." And I told her, "I would rather that you really take care of yourself and really don't get out of that building and take pretty good care." She asked me, "Are you coming this way?" I said, "Certainly, if I have a chance, I will do." And then I watched it, the images coming out through, and I remember calling. The first person I called is very interesting. He's Dr. Harold Mwangi here, and I said, "Have you seen this?" And he told me, "We are also trying to figure out." And then I called another colleague, and we said, "Wow, something drastic is going on."
Right. Dennis, this happens, and you were at the Safari 7.
Correct.
At Safari Group 7 at
Yes.
the time. The big number. As a security, you were working for a security firm.
Yes.
What details did you have that was not out there, and what first measures did you take?
One of the things is that, of course, we're running a very huge operation, around about 2,000 officers deployed.
Right.
You know, various government security agencies and all. And interestingly enough is that, of course, the very first 30 minutes that the attack happened is that, of course, there was a impression or the illusion that we were going to be a secondary attack. And you know, you have 120,000 Kenyans congregated in one field. So one of the things that we did is that we had looked at all of these scenarios. What if there's a terrorist attack? You know, there are 20 scenarios or thereabout that you can look at.
Many asked that you close down these Safari.
I mean, yeah, there was conversations that we knew we need to shut down and we need to shut down. But, you know, basically shutting down an event that has 120,000 people, then you're creating other problems, like, you know, a riot or anything of the sort. You don't want anything. You want people to be calm and composed. You don't want to send panic or pandemonium or anything of the sort. Right. So we just stepped up our operations. And we kept minute by minute information from Westgate, because we had people that were inside Westgate and they were giving us information. And also we were with you know, various agencies, the police, NSIS, and all that. So we were ready for any type of eventuality and ensuring that everybody was safe. Right. But you know, it takes 6 months for us to look at an event like that, and really we explore every other avenue of any possible attack.
Dennis, speaking of preparation, because he's talking about how they would respond to it, and of course, no one is prepared for such an attack. But to an extent, now, are we more prepared in covering such an incident? Of course, you're working for an international media firm right now. What's a contrast? When you were in Kenya, working for a Kenyan station, and now you're working for an international station.
You know, at the time, when you get a call from your editor, you know, you need to run to Westgate. Something is happening there. Initially, when I got a call, what I thought was just a robbery. And I just rushed there, parked my car some safe distance from Westgate, around Nakmachuke, and then walked. And then I saw people running out with blood carved on their faces, and security officers running all over the place, guns, and, you know, it was very, very confusing. And I remember it was horrific just being there, and I was scared. At first I was scared, Then I thought, I need to do this story. I need to talk to someone. But, you know, there were so many people you could talk to. You've got this different variations of stories from survivors, from victims. People are coming out. People are trying to look for their loved ones. My mobile phone is ringing throughout the entire time. I have friends who are calling, where are you, what's happening, trying to get information. I'm also trying to go through social media to find out what exactly is happening. And at that particular moment, I didn't think of my safety, because now I know better. Now I'm very well trained.
I want to get into that training that you're talking about, that you clearly admit you didn't have while working for the Kenyan media. Now you're working for BBC. Just to get a perspective on how better to equip ourselves. And gentlemen, we'll get into this discussion. We just need to sort out some sound issues here. I need to talk to Dan Reed. He's been on standby. You've been gracious enough. So we want to sort this as we take a short break. Stay with us.
Coming up on Press Pass,